Pinkertons Ghosts is a horror anthology podcast by Superversive Radio, with no affiliation with any detective agency, person, real or imagined, or the dark forces of Outre Terre. It is not intended for children.
Due to the nature of this report, certain names of living agents are censored. Please understand that temporal health is everyone's responsibility. Jack, contact me after you listen to this report.
I'm turning this report in with the others. Control, you talked me into this. You couldn't have known. You couldn't have known, but it happened. Good will come of it, but I still had to bury Jack. Jack. But he was Jack. I left my son with the old Shawnee. The old Tecumseh wannabe is taking my son on some sort of journey to prove his scoutmanship. Jack will never be on a list of Eagle Scouts, but he'll have training that would make Daniel Boone jealous. He was excited. I told the old Shawnee, in no uncertain terms, that any unchristian rituals are forbidden. No spirits of the Indians are to be summoned and honored. No spirit journeys into the strange realms of the soul where his guardian angel cannot go. No ghost dances. The old Shawnee looked at me like I said the funniest thing. Why would I give any of that knowledge to some fatherless paleface? He said, mocking me with a Tonto accent. It cut. He has a way of that when he's sober. I had another reason to leave for a while. Jack and I have been feuding lately. He wants the two of us to go after Orion and Tom Morrow. It's been a year since their disappearances. I don't know what mission you sent Tom on, Control. You keep this from me. I don't know why. I don't know why you sent Orion after Tom. I don't know why Orion accepted it. He wasn't a fighter. Jack wants us, him or me, to go after them. He'd do it too. I can't do it. They're dead, Jack, and I can't face it. I planned on talking to you about it when we met face to face. All my missions are Black Folder Control. You better believe that should give me privilege to read other Black Folders. I planned to hash it out and get what I needed to go after Orion and Tom Morrow, but you'll see. I'll tell you what the man who came through the portal told me. Despite my concerns, the conference was fun. Talks by Hold Lusari and other wizard types were always worth it to learn new techniques to kill wizards. I spent a decent amount of time in the weapons shop. Met with some of the guys from my first mission. That sort of thing. Even had lunch with old Tom. The man is so crusty, I'm sure his mother called him that. I appreciate the rabbit warren you rented out for us. There must have been 50 different hidey holes in every hall. The underground parking was so convoluted you could never know how many people had attended or in what cars. The other agencies trying to recruit from our ranks were funny. Hey kid, you ever want to be a Fed? Do I get to kill more monsters? Sometimes, kid, but you get... Not interested. I've interacted with Daz through Tom Morrow in the past, but that was painful. I found an invitation to the Society Estrange on a napkin, complete with riddles, and a man with a face I cannot remember offered me a spot in the Security Commission. I threw the Society's invitation away. I wasn't going to use it. Who knows what they did to the napkin? I nearly stabbed the man from the Security Commission after he started talking about childcare. Jack is not to be touched. By anyone. And certainly not some mysterious know-it-all pencil pusher. I kept my temper. I did not cause a scene. He took my warning and left. Besides that, the time was pleasant. I was even open to conversation with total strangers. Well, total strangers within the Paranormal Pinkerton Organization. No one else. I even took a picture with the group. They blurred the faces on the negative. Not long before the closing ceremonies, it started. Holt Lusari had been questioning me about the rituals at the commune. I told him things that were safe to know. He became intolerable. But before I could give him the cut direct, the air changed. You feel that? Holt fingered some pouches at his waist, like he was a gunman in the Old West. Yes. I might have been loosening a few things in preparation for a fight. Whatever button he was hitting stopped being important. Something was about to happen. We didn't wait long. Other agents felt the change in the mood. Some vanished into the walls. Others pulled weapons. Old Tom was nearby. In a moment, he had a full Tommy gun assembled in his hand. A crack appeared in the sky. A red thing fell dead at our feet. It was an ugly, feral creature. Four-limbed, like a man in build, but sexless. It had horns cracking through the skull, revealing sparkless brain matter. The body smelled like bad eggs, making the whole place reek of sulfur. It's dead, Holt said. Old Tom kicked the body. After staying dead, he nodded. Holt checked one of the rings on his fingers and shrugged. This thing isn't from this dimension. Let's see what makes this tick. If someone has a knife, I can demonstrate how I skin... I pulled him aside. Another body, like the first, fell from a new crack above his head. The crack closed the second the body fell through. I could see fire behind the body. Nothing else. It was a world on fire, sending us their dead. Another body fell on some pencil pusher. Before he could have the body hauled off him, another fell on one of his would-be rescuers. They weren't falling with force. No one was hurt. Then, Holt Lusari turned over the body. The thing had no face, just teeth. Teeth encircling rows around an esophagus that ended in the back of the head. It had no throat, just teeth. No eyes, just more teeth. Teeth on teeth like a whirlpool. The teeth spun and gyrated around itself as it settled back down. Holt wasn't staring at its head. Bullet wounds. What do you think, old Tom?
Don't call me that. 50 cal at least. Something weird. The bullet didn't leave the body. No exit wounds.
It was true. Another fell nearby. It flopped on some sales table and bled over some manuals for sale. One exit wound at the neck. The back of the thing was pristine. Someone shouted, "Do all the dead demon things have their bullet wounds in front?" Something big fell out of the largest crack yet. It was a monster of rock and flame. Its blood, which bled from uncountable holes in its torso, was magma. It lit the carpet on fire. It had no face, but 4 arms and legs like pillars. It may have been 20 feet tall if it was alive. It was dead, like the rest. Someone screamed. The magma blood had hit a woman's arm. Holt shouted above the crowd. "Hazard! Pull out and regroup outside!" This time, 3 of the red demons fell out of another portal. Then 5 more. Then multiple portals opened at once. There were bodies falling out of the empty sky. The same vista of fire and smoke and shadows behind them. Gunfire echoed, but we couldn't hear its source.
That's a deuce.
Old Tom started. He jumped out of the way as a large red thing, same as the rest, but bigger, with gold embedded in its skin and 4 arms rather than 2, fell near him. I had an impression that this was an officer of some sorts. This one had taken a lot of firepower before it died. It had many horns like a ram, but it also had a face. Its eyes held the heat of a dying coal, but it had a mouth like a human's, and it snarled in defiance. It was cold and evil, and it died the death like its servants. "Someone is still fighting out there?" Holt asked. Old Tom pulled him back from a crack forming above Holt's head. I was pulling back with the rest. I helped up a staffer for the hall. She was panicked, hysterical. She cycled through a rosary like it was a belt fed ammo. I was able to shove her through a fire exit. I almost followed her, but gunfire roared out in the hall. I ducked down, putting a pillar between my body and the sound. In the center of the hall, not far from where the great magma-bleeding monster was lying dead, something ticked. Something talked. The tick-tock sounds reversed, like someone was running a cassette player in reverse at speed. All the monsters moved. The one Holt Lusari examined flipped back over. The big monster's blood reversed back into its body, and the fires died down for a moment. The monsters kept falling, but now they rose to heights on unseen strings. Some fell through and stopped midway between the crack and the ground, like a figure in resin. Each one trapped in some microsecond of their fall from the cracks in the air. The air trembled. I kept my head down, tucked into a corner. I was not one of the lucky ones with sliding panels near at hand for an easy escape. The air vibrated like a drum. I peeked around the corner. I could see the shockwaves reverberating over the thickest part of the floating bodies. It was a mountain of them, several hundred waiting for whatever would come down. I didn't have to wait long. The air burst like a bubble. A man stood on the pile of corpses. A smoking machine gun was in his right hand, and a long, smoldering knife was in his left. He was clad head to toe in some sort of tattered and burnt battle armor. Chest plates of metal were scorched and bent. The coat he wore over his armor was tattered. Something sparked at his waist. His thighs down were covered in gore. His gloves were whole, but where there once was metal and leather, now there was blackened ash. His face terrified me. His eyes stared into the hall, unseeing. His right eye was hidden by a glowing red lens, set into a World War I era gas mask that was ripped and torn, but whole in all the important places. His left eye was exposed, but blood covered it, so it was useless to him. Something had ripped out chunks of his helmet. Weaponry was attached to every reasonable part of his suit. Guns and magazines were set in pouches. Knives and holdouts were attached to either leg. Some holsters and pouches were empty. Others were still full. Some rippled in the air. Others made the whole hall smell like ozone, cutting over the sulfurous bodies. The man that had come from the bubble was a mess of flesh, armor, weapons, and most of all, rage. He fired into the floating bodies indiscriminately. The 50 cal M2 was fed from a belt that reached behind his back. The gunfire left no casings, but the bullets tore flesh all the same. He shouted. The voice tickled something. I could almost recognize it. Almost. The gunfire sent me back into my spot behind the pillar. There was more shouting. The man couldn't be heard past his ruined gas mask. More bullets followed. Something fell screeching from the sky. Another crack opened and shut. The man in the gas mask shot it until it stopped screeching. I got to my feet, keeping the pillar between me and the gunman. He wasn't aggressive towards humans, yet, but that could change in an instant. He shouted. His voice was garbled and ragged. He staggered down the pile of corpses. When he reached the bottom, he collapsed onto all fours. He started to gag. The man was gigantic. I couldn't tell how much of him was the suit or his body. He stood over 7 feet tall. He heaved up blood. It burst out of his gas mask. He started to punch the ground and struggled to his feet. Whatever wounds he carried, he was still in his fight. I took it as a sign to run. He caught sight of me and screamed. I heard him get to his feet and run after me. I ran faster. My mind twisted over itself. A man was chasing me. I had no idea what he wanted, what he could want. Nothing good. Never anything good. Even my father couldn't pursue me on a trip across America. He found me missing and found no way to find me. But my mind shut down. I had to run. That would save me. I had to run. He was blundering after me. I did run and lift weights for exercise, but this was a fully grown man, stocked to the gills with magical artifacts and with legs that were twice the length of mine. I could believe 10-year-old boys and girls could have something of an even fight. Me against him? He'd crush me. I ran through a door and slammed it behind me. He burst through, breaking the lock. I was running through narrow gaps in the conference hall walls. They had been tearing down some of the barriers. Shouldered through the first, the second. He must have had augmented strength. He slammed against the third. This one, he couldn't push through. He slammed against it again and shouted. His voice was a rolling growl, sobbing, gargling, and gagging on something hidden by his mask. I was disgusted by him, afraid of him. He was monstrous. He hadn't fired on me. He was chasing me. I ran into one of the exits into the side hallways meant for janitors and housekeepers. One of the Paranormal Pinkertons grabbed me. I nearly pulled a knife on him and stuck it in his ribs. It would have been justified. Hey! Holt is looking for you. He's in the opposite passage. The man in armor broke through the door and stumbled into the side hall, slamming against walls and plowing through cleaning product. I started running. The Paranormal Pinkerton who had spoken to me pulled something from his coat and threw it. It'll slow him down. Cover your eyes. I was already covering them as I ran. The flashbang went off. The two of us stumbled, but didn't fall. The man in armor screamed. His gun fired into the air. The agent cried out and fell. His arm was gone. I didn't stop. I ran through a door, then across another conference hall where some poor schmuck had been selling some damn fool thing, and through the door into the main hall. 2 Paranormal Pinkertons waited for me. They slammed the door shut and hit it with something they held in their hands. A pink liquid spread from a broken vial and covered the door. The door clicked, then bent as the pink liquid retracted like rubber. It wasn't going to be open easy anymore. Come on, Morrow. The two men escorted me across another conference hall, and into the side halls I had entered the mirror images of a minute ago. Holt was there, with old Tom and a few others. I think... what were their names? Bob Critterton, George Zimmerman, Polly Killark. I told them about the man who lost his arm to the gunfire. Polly volunteered to go find him and administer first aid. Something struggled and roared in the distance. Holt pulled out a ring. It glowed with lines and circles. In a moment of concentration, Holt turned the chaos into a passable layout of the conference center. I don't think he meant to do that. You flashbanged him, right? So far, he's had multiple chances to shoot agents, including you, Morrow, but he hasn't taken them. I tried to argue. That thing was still after me. But he could have shot you 50 times over, right? Yes. But he hasn't. He wants me. Holt pointed at one of his rings. This ring detects interdimensional travelers, time travelers, and stuff like that. He isn't from around here. Probably from another timeline. To move from universe to universe requires an artifact that can unleash enough power to destabilize our world's entire perspective of reality. The roaring was getting louder. Something crackled like a Tesla coil. Holt was sweating. This isn't going to last long. Look. There's maybe 3 artifacts in the world that can do that. At least without... Oh, never mind. The Heart of Kronos, the Hourglass of Da Vinci, and H.G. Wells' pocket watch. To get those, you have to... It doesn't matter. Look. Holt looked me in the eyes. He seems to be after you. I'm not going to ask you to fight him. He gestured between himself and old Tom. We'll fight him. Paranormal Pinkertons take care of their own. But you have to do something for us. Whatever that guy out there is, he wants you. I can't tell you what for, but I need you to lure him into a trap. I can guarantee your safety. Bull! That thing out there! I wanted to run. All the feelings from my year walking to the Ozarks came back. I was being hunted. Someone was after me. I needed to run. Something snapped beyond the walls. Everyone in the hall ducked. Something cut through a set of bleached bottles. The liquid poured down to our feet. We ran down the hall. I can protect you. I can. But you have to trust me. All we're asking you to do is stand there and see what he does. That's it. There's a second-floor exit near a fire escape. He told me the plan. I didn't agree. I demanded they kill the monster. They refused. I told them that the man who lost an arm was probably dead by now. I shouted at them. I screamed. We reached the fire exit Holt had talked about. Old Tom grabbed my arm and caught my other hand as I tried to escape with a knife. Look, we can't just kill him. We can't. We have no idea whether it's possible. I've seen something like this before. It could turn lead into vitamins for all we know. We have no idea what that suit will do if we kill him. It could go up like a nuke. There are civilians hunkered down all over the place. I kicked him in the testicles. He slapped me. Old Tom is a large man. It hurt, but it brought me out of my panic. Get a hold of yourself. You'll go up there and let him see you. Let him see you as if he can talk to you. If he so much as points his gun at you, you can run and we'll kill him. We'll kill him with prejudice. We need you to do this. If you don't, you can forget about the protection we give you. We love Tom Morrow, but if you can't play ball when it matters, then we can't work with you. His craggy face softened. Control told me he died. She told me a lot in case something happened. He built a lot of the paranormal Pinkertons like my grandfather did. For his sake.
For Jack's sake, please put yourself on the line for us.
That hurt worse than the slap. I stood on the balcony, waiting. The door to the fire escape behind me. Old Tom had even propped it open. I steeled myself. For Jack, I said. For Jack. For Jack. It kept me from running. The man in the armor stumbled into the light. His gun hung loose in a strap. His hands were pressing some piece of fabric on his chest. He was gasping, trying to breathe through a broken gas mask. He saw me and reached out his hands. His blind left eye weeped a milky white fluid. He kept gargling something. His hands shook, begging me. For what? I was disgusted by this display. The fear changing into anger the more I looked at him. I was afraid of some pathetic thing. No monster, but a beggar. It mumbled and moaned on its knees. It tried to speak once more. Another pathetic failure. It clawed at its mask. It tried to rip it off again. It was screaming. It wept and sobbed. It brought out a knife and cut at the rubber and metal. The thing had looked like a World War I gas mask at first. Now, it looked like some rags. The knife cut through, and the thing in front of me threw something away. My eyes were arrested by something beating like a heart underneath the ruined rubber. Without the mask on, I could see his face. It was Jack. He was my son. He grabbed at tubes of flesh and metal that filled his mouth and pulled. He gagged and roared as he pulled out yards and yards of something. He bled more and more from the mouth and his eye. Mom! Mom! His voice was clear, plaintive. I could hear the blood welling in his throat. Who has done that to my son? And I had been thinking such cruel thoughts. I ran down the stairs and caught him as he fell. Mom! He spat blood into my face. I didn't feel it. I'm here. I'm here, Jack. I'm here for you. I held him as he choked and gasped. It was horrible. His forehead beaded with sweat. I tried to wipe it away from his eyes. Old Tom and Holt and the others watched, unsure. It was my son. Older, yes. Terribly old. Terribly wounded. What had he been through? What had he done to himself? Holt whispered in my ear. Try to figure out what had happened. Ask him where it went wrong. Anything can help. Jack? His right eye flickered to me. It didn't focus. His blood was pooling in my hands. His body was not warm. I brushed his hair off his forehead. Jack, you need to tell us what happened. Please. What went wrong? He gulped, coughing and wheezing. It started with some sort of fire up north. Canada, Scandinavia, and Russia turned into a war zone. I never fought in that first conflict. Things went crazy all over. Elves went out to conquer land that had never been theirs. Goblins everywhere. Ghosts, undead. Necromancers found power at their fingertips easier than ever. And then there was the Fimbulwinter. Then the undead wiped out the southern continents, and the fire imps came down from north.
we could fight the fire imps. The undead never ended. We killed and killed and killed. We never stopped. Jim zipped me up in the suit. Sean found out where the heart of Kronos was hidden. We needed it. He said he figured out what could change. We fought to where it was hidden and took it. But it wasn't that easy. We had to find something. Sean couldn't just activate it. Time itself was being siphoned into the fire nymphs. We fought our way to the Nexus. It took so long. People gave up all around us. Some of these men had fought with us from our revival to the attack on the Grand Masons. We wiped them out. Every last one and their families. Mom, I killed my father with my bare hands. I crushed his throat, and I paid to him. I made him pay.
He gasped. I comforted him. Good job. I'm proud of you. I'm so glad you did that. Pike was still alive in our world. I had to remember that. But I was glad Jack had killed him. I was proud of him. He wept. It never stopped. I killed him. I killed so many before him. I couldn't count how many I had killed after. I killed and murdered and brought so many to justice and sent so many to hell. The men couldn't take it. They started killing themselves over and over again. Loops of men had hung themselves, cursed to one death hanging down the road for eternities, until Sean and Jim could break down the loops and free us. Fields of dead men. Friends giving up. No hope. He grabbed me. Jesus didn't come back to our world. He didn't come back. We waited. We prayed. We lost hope. Nothing left. We fought without hope. Sean, Jim, and I fought without any hope of victory, just to get Sean out to try to stop whatever. He sobbed and continued after he had mastered himself again. Who knew my boy had so much blood? We made it to the Nexus. We had no hope. So we got Sean up and he died. He failed. Jim attempted ultra geonecromancy, but that killed him. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't give up. I wouldn't give up. I fought to get Sean's body. I took the heart of Kronos and broke it. I fought and fought his reality. I don't know. They were all dead. The undead were rolling through every inch of the world. I was the last man standing at Ragnarok. It didn't matter. I'm here. I'm dying. I know. I rubbed his hands. Holt whispered in my ear. That isn't enough. Ask him where it all went wrong. Jack, look at me. I love you. Think back. Think all the way back. When did it go wrong? You left and never came back. Days after that, I had to kill my half-brother. He tried to take me to our father, but I fought him, and I killed him. Then I had to kill others. It never stopped.
There was always someone else. Something else. I just never stopped. Never. I never found a wife. I never had kids. I never did anything worth doing except killing. He was fading faster and faster. And nothing mattered. It all burned. It all got devoured by the undead. There was no second coming. It never mattered. And I lost hope. He died. It was hard to let him go. But old Tom and Holt Lucari worked with me until I could lay his corpse down. They took the corpse from sight. The armor was put into storage. It's Jack's, and no others. Holt could not figure it out. The thing under his mask was a heart. It only worked when it came close to Jack's corpse. It's all together in Vault 785 Orpheus. You know the one, Control. I went back to the Ozarks and gave up on it all. I haven't told Jack about his potential future self. I've been avoiding him. Had to stay away a couple of weeks. I'm going to try to talk to him about Tom and Orion. Morrow out.
Pinkerton's Ghosts is a podcast distributed by Superversive Radio, licensed under an attribution non-commercial, share-alike international license. This episode was written by Ben Wheeler and performed by Celina Saucedo. Ben Wheeler edits, directs, produces, and herds cats. Kid Dickerson performs our audio editing. Visit us on Facebook, read articles on superversivesf.com, or listen to us on unauthorized Acast, iTunes, or Spotify. Contact us through Twitter at @PinkertonsGhost, email us at pinkertonsghosts@gmail.com, or send us noble messenger possums with messages strapped to their backs. Don't worry, they know how to find us. Thank you for listening, and good luck.